All right, joining us now, Rob Crilly, Inside Secrets. A lot of hullabaloo here about this Melania movie. What's the deal?
Yeah, well, we talked about this a little bit last week. I'd written about how I find her a super fascinating character in the White House. And then after we did the show, I went and saw the movie for myself. There's been a lot of talk about it. I wanted to know what's going on. And of course, you know what happens? I take my seat in the back row. And as I'm sitting there, a loud English voice booms out, "Rob, fancy running into you here." It was my friend from The Guardian, another reporter sitting next to me. We watched the movie side by side. I asked him quickly for his view. His view was vacuous nonsense, as perhaps you might expect from The Guardian. But I said, look,
Vacuous nonsense.
I'm sorry, David.
Wait a minute. I've got to write that down, Rob. You know, everybody knows I steal stuff. I have got to write that down.
Feel,
I'm going to put it
feel,
up on the. See all these whiteboards I've got? One, two, three, four, five, six of them, all filled up. So sorry,
so,
audience.
so
Vacuous nonsense.
feel
Thank
free,
you.
feel free to use. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
I just stole it for life.
And I said to my friend David, I said, look, I've got to dash out. I want to stand by the door and get some of the viewers, some of the punters, as we would say in Britain, some of the normal people
The
coming
punters.
out, punters. A regular person who's paid their money, watched the movie.
It's called a punter.
We call them punters. I said, look, I want to stand on the door, catch some people as they're coming out. So a woman's walking out the door. She's got a knitted hat on, which I thought was maybe unusual for somebody watching the Melania movie. And of course, I said to her, "I'm a reporter. Do you mind if I just have a quick word?" She said, "No, no, no. I'm a reporter too." And then she said every other person she tried to speak to inside the movie theatre was a reporter as well. So there we were. I suppose it's not surprising. On a Friday, we were there for the 2:10 p.m. viewing. Most regular people have got work to go to, of course. So there we were, all trying to
10
find
p.m. or 10 a.m.
sorry, so 2:10 p.m. So, just after lunch. And of course, most people are still busy working. But the result was there was a slew of stories about how all the screenings were either empty or filled only by journalists. I think if we'd gone to the 5 p.m. viewing or the 7 p.m. viewing, it would have been a lot busier. So that was the first
That's honest.
interesting thing, was that it was
What did you
all,
think of the movie?
I thought it was fine. Look, it's not going to win an Oscar, but then that's what these sort of celebrity vehicles are like. Melania Trump was an executive producer on it, so she's controlling the content. So look, was it filled with scandal or stuff she didn't want in there? Of course it wasn't. So there was an element of it being very polished. But what I found interesting was the little insights we did get into the relationship between her and the president. We also a large chunk of the movie was the couple of days around the inauguration, the day before, some of the last minute planning, and the day itself. That was interesting to go behind the scenes of how it was put together. And there was one moment, a rather telling moment, where the president elect, as he was then, was practicing his speech. And Melania suggested inserting the word unifier in the president wanted to be a unifier into one part of the speech. Then we cut to the next day, and he used the word unifier. And we wouldn't have realised this at the time, but he then turned to where the First Lady was sitting over his shoulder and pointed at her, acknowledging her role in helping put the speech together. She smiled, and then she looked directly at the documentary camera as if to say, "See, you know, I do have a role." So look, it's not the greatest piece of cinema I've ever seen, but it was revealing in some ways, and I think that we've seen from the box office numbers, it's actually doing fine. It was one of the biggest openings for a documentary. Well, I think the biggest in more than a decade. And I think if you watch it with an open mind, it does allow you to get behind the scenes. And in fact, the one real person that I caught coming out of the cinema said to me that he thought it was very, very polished, and it was almost like watching make believe. But he said that in a positive way, that this is a sort of aspirational couple, and that you were seeing how they lived their lives, whether in Mar-a-Lago or the White House, and that there was something to admire in that. So I think if you go into it, hating President Trump and Melania Trump, you'll come away with ammunition.
Like the Guardian.
You can always take out what you want. I thought it wasn't as bad as the reviews suggested. Let's put it that
Did
way.
you learn anything?
Yeah, I did.
What did you learn?
I think their relationship was interesting. That Melania does have a role in how the presidency runs. She obviously took a lot of trouble over the inauguration parties. I think that the idea, because she's absent, because we don't see a lot of her, she tends to get written out of the White House and its coverage. But I think what we saw is she is behind the scenes, getting on with things. Also, she knows her stuff when it comes to fashion. There was a chunk of the movie, the stuff you'd be interested in was like the dress design. There was a lot of there was a lot of fashion going on, and she really does know the intricacies of fashion. And we learned that her mother had been had worked in the industry, and therefore she'd inherited that attention to detail. And we know, of course, we know she's a model, and therefore she's worked in the fashion industry. But she was very knowledgeable and clearly worked with a team of designers in a productive way. So yeah, there were nuggets in there that did the where I felt I was learning something.
You know, during the campaign, which I was one of the OGs, as you know, the originals in the Trump campaign 2015 and 2016, the one thing that you knew when you were there is that it was a family business,
Yeah.
right? You all knew that from day one. Michael Glassner told me that the day they made me chairman, they flew me up to New York. He sits down and he says two things you have to know immediately. A, it's a family business, and
Yeah.
B, never talk to Michael Cohen. That's what he told me. Never. If you see him in the bathroom, pee, look down and get out. The guy's got a mic on him. Just never talk to the guy ever. Those are the two things. But during the campaign, everybody knew that, Trump is Trump. He does whatever he wants. But everybody knew that he was afraid of Melania.
Yeah.
Like, deathly afraid.
Yeah.
Like, when she'd call up, like, he'd take his call, and, like, he didn't want to make her mad. He didn't want to get her upset. Everybody knew that he was petrified of Melania. Other than that, he was afraid of anything. He didn't want to get her mad.
I've had that sense as well. When reporting, for example, on Barron, if you go through, the normal White House press channels, you can sense people tensing up because Barron is very much the East Wing and Melania's domain, and they do not want to get ahead of the First Lady on any of this stuff.
Right.
So I think it runs through the whole setup there.
Let's talk about what you got in secrets this week. Again, you want to sign up for this newsletter. It's free. Let's go to WashingtonExaminer.com. I'm going to get a graphic up next week, I promise. WashingtonExaminer. Now I got it written on my board.
It's there. You can't miss it.
But when it's
Yeah.
there, it means I'm going to do it. WashingtonExaminer.com/secrets. Sign up for that. It's free. Goes right to your inbox. The SAVE Act, John Thune, and not bringing it up, and he doesn't want to break the filibuster. What have you heard?
Oh well, it's we're yet again in the same position where this stuff gets kicked down the line, and it just causes a problem for another day. So look, Democrats, Republicans, clearly a long way apart. I can't see how this gets sorted out. We saw from the last shutdown that the two sides were far apart then, and were quite happy for political reasons just to leave it deadlocked, and then we're just back in the same position all over again.
So you see no movement from Thune getting rid of the filibuster, and because they have the votes to pass it.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean,
They have 50 votes.
you're just storing up trouble for you know. We're seeing some warning signs now, right? We're heading towards what are going to be some very difficult midterms for the Republicans. We know the House is under threat for them, and we're starting to now see the sirens go off for the Senate as well. Like, do you want to be in a position where you're handing over all that power to the majority party when in 7 or 8 months it might not even be you anymore? So, I can't see any changes there.
So, were you surprised that the White House political office and President Trump weighed in to the Georgia 14 congressional race? Did that surprise you for Clay Fuller over Colton Moore?
I mean, I think if I look at the bigger picture now, you've got a problem for Republicans in the midterms when Donald Trump is not on the ticket, right? We've seen in a lot of different places 2 years ago where Republicans were winning districts, but not as clearly as Donald Trump was winning the districts. So what happens is the down ballot races all benefit from Donald Trump being at the top of the ballot. Fast forward to November when he's not on the ballot, that's going to be a problem getting out some of those, we call them mid propensity Trump voters, right? These are the people who will vote for Donald Trump, but might not always turn out for Republicans at other times of the year. I think what the president's strategy here is, the more he can insert himself into the midterms, I think we're starting to see those endorsements rolling out now. We're obviously expecting some sort of midterm convention. So I think what we're going to see is the president putting himself front and center in order to create that excitement in his base and make sure that.
What do you think about this midterm convention? When I went to the RNC winter meeting in Santa Barbara, they voted on that. They voted it in, and I think it's going to Dallas. I think they voted for Dallas.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
What is your opinion of that?
Well, I mean, it seems to me a smart move. I mean, I talked to a pollster a few weeks ago, and he reckons that something like 20% of Trump supporters will stay home. They will vote in the presidential election. Don't forget, Trump won by finding all these new voters, people who hadn't ever voted in an election before. He brought them out. So this is the challenge, I think, facing Republicans. How do you get those voters to the polls? And so it seems to me that a midterm convention is not a bad strategy. And of course, we think it looks like the Democrats are going to do the same thing. I mean, they're always happy when Trump puts himself front and center because they think he's a liability. We've rather seen last time around. It turned out not to be the case. So look, I mean, I didn't know I'd missed the vote. I missed that they were talking about Dallas. I like Dallas. It's a fun place, and I think it strikes me as a pretty sensible way to go.
Yeah, I think they'll do Dallas. I know there were three venues. It was Dallas, Detroit, and I forget the third. Vegas, I think.
Oh, right,
Vegas.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I prefer to go to Vegas, but I think they felt that Dallas was more accessible to
Yeah.
more people.
Yeah.
So,
That
and
makes
obviously you
sense.
got a lot going on in Texas, but I like the idea. The members voted in favor of it. Now it's not a nominating convention, so like you're not, how they choose the delegates, that's not been worked out. Certainly I would hope that I'll be one or figure out a way to get there, but with Ann. But I think it's a great idea. Inside baseball, what are you working on now? What have you heard? What can we expect to see in WashingtonExaminer.com/secrets?
Well, look, I mean, I'll bring up to date with some of the other stuff we published this week, which was we did a bit of a dive into Kristi Noem, who obviously had a terrible week last week as Homeland Security Secretary. And I mean, I got the scoop that she was going to head to the border on Wednesday and do a press conference there. And a White House official let slip that around the White House they're calling it a rehabilitation tour. So obviously, look, sensible for Kristi Noem to get out on the road, get attention back to the border itself, which we know has been a winning issue for Donald Trump and for Republicans. And I think it saved her skin for now. She allowed President Trump to sort of take over the crisis in Minnesota, sending in Tom Homan, who then sort of sent 700 federal agents back. I get the sense that she has saved herself for now, but that was what a White House official said. For now, to me, I think she's
Rehabilitation tour.
Yeah, I think she's under intense scrutiny. I think that the louder the Democrats call for her head, the more the president digs in. We know he doesn't like to do Democrats' bidding. So I think the fact that they've been after her gave her some cover. And as we know, her close ally, Corey Lewandowski, big favorite of the president. And I think that he has, probably.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. Which
In fact, I had heard that it was Lewandowski that convinced everybody to go with the body cams. Is that true?
That I don't know, but it sounds.
I heard that.
That sounds feasible because I think that she was under intense pressure. The president really likes Lewandowski and will listen to him. So, anyways, she's off the hook, but that's something I'll be keeping an eye on, and I'll probably be taking a look at this DHS funding bill, which they're trying to get across the line. February the 13th, funding runs out for DHS. That was the
See, if they just got rid of the filibuster, that goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Say that passes. I mean, and my problem with Thune and the Republicans is, if you operate out of fear, you lose, right? If you're playing not to lose, you lose. Play to win, keep the majority, get things done, keep the majority. They refuse to do it. When I was in the Oval Office on Tuesday, Lindsey Graham was there, and the president was talking about the SAVE Act. He spent a lot of time on it, and he said, yeah, well, we've got to get rid of the filibuster. Right, Lindsey? And of course, Lindsey laughed, but he doesn't want to do it. Thune doesn't want to do it. When he took a head count, he had 8 votes.
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Tuberville and 7 other guys. 8 votes out of 54. Like, nobody wants to get rid of it. And it's frustrating for us on the side of the MAGA, because if they do get rid of it, you get all this stuff done.
I mean, I suppose
which will ensure victory.
The counter argument, as you know very well, is that if you change that principle, you allow the Democrats to wield that power when Republicans are in opposition. Also, I feel like the Senate is supposed to be a hard place to get things done, right? It's supposed to be this higher chamber, more debate, more deliberation, working across the aisle in a way you don't necessarily get in the House with its.
Yeah, that worked 30 years ago, 50 years ago, when you had, Scoop Jackson and you had Birch Bayh. I mean, you had liberals, but they were reasonable. You could go have a conversation with them. You can't talk. I mean, you can't talk to these people now. If you're on you're on the Trump side, they won't even have a conversation. And all they do is get on TV and call you fascist and this and that and secret police and Stasi, whatever they do. So those days are gone where you could go to the cloakroom, with John McCain and have a beer or have a scotch or bourbon, work things out. Those days are gone.
Well, okay, yeah, I take that point, but you bring up John McCain. I mean, look how he treated John McCain. So I think it's all very well saying that the Democrats have ruined this collaborative approach. I think Republicans have done their fair share too. So I think both sides have got what they deserve a little bit, which is deadlock. I think the American people deserve better, frankly.
Well, we need to get rid of the filibuster. Rob, I want to thank you for being with us.
Great to be here.
Now, here's what you need to do. I promise I'll get your graphic up next week. Promise. I got to give that assignment.
You'll be in the bus. You're going to be driving across Iowa.
I'm going to give all I got to do is give the assignment to Marcy McCarthy. It's done. Founder of the Peach Grove. By the way, go to WashingtonExaminer.com/secrets. WashingtonExaminer.com/secrets. Want to sign up for his newsletter? It's free, and you're going to get it right to your inbox. Doesn't cost you anything, just like my newsletter. It's free. I like free. Free is good. So WashingtonExaminer.com/secrets. Rob, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So it's a weekly thing now with Rob coming here in studio. Next Friday, though, will be on video because we'll be in the bus in Iowa. So anyway, Rob, thanks for being with us. Up next, Jason Miyares, former Attorney General, Virginia, loaded for bear. Keep it right here on the John Fredericks Media Network, live in Washington, D.C. Stay with us.